cycling weekend hotspot. I met Tim O'Donnell and Miranda Carfrey there one time. Cool. It's just a pretty famous spot. It's about halfway point between Boulder and Carter Lake. So a lot of people do ride out to Carter Lake, stop there, refuel, go to the bathroom, and then head back home. Kind of what I'm doing, I guess. I'm just going the opposite direction. Just nice hour and 15-minute ride today. Most of it I'm trying to stay in zone 2, but obviously there's some hills in here that require me to go over that. I just can't climb the hill in zone 2 unless it's really teeny. And then as I'm heading back here, I will be doing 15 to 20 minutes of, we'll try to go low zone 4 for me, which is right around my race pace effort. So just try to really kind of cruise at a little bit of a higher heart rate than normal. So that's the plan. It's a beautiful day out. I'm gonna go ahead and hit you guys up, give you a little sea story. It's not, for me it's a pretty embarrassing one, but you know, it's shit like this that made me get sober. But this was just like, well, I had told you guys before that I was married, and I got married really quick after I got sober the first time. Had a couple years of just iffy behavior. My ex-wife and I had a son together, and when he was 2, well, not even 2, he was just about 2, we had a pretty big falling out and decided to go our separate ways. And we shared an apartment, but I had moved out. She was basically staying there until she could get a moving truck and move back to her home state with my son. And I was staying with a friend of mine, and so we were kind of taking turns going back and forth the apartment. I would say, hey, this is before cell phones, so I would call and say, hey, we'd arrange for me to go not only just pick up some of my stuff, but also to clean the apartment, because we were sharing cleaning duties. And then I was going to pick my son up from her, and so she could kind of do her cleaning. We were both trying to do our best just to be amicable, I feel. But when you're drinking, there's just not a lot of peace with anybody. Always appreciate the downhill. Woo! Always. Gotta bust a brick run after the long bike ride. Gotta keep that run in zone 2. So it'll probably be a little bit more of a walk shuffle, but I don't want to completely walk. So just gonna try to keep this up. Probably walk a lot. Just about smoked. I can barely even walk in my zone 2. So just kind of doing little 1 minute run, 2 minutes walking. Pretty pathetic. Still a beautiful day though. All right, let me get home, finish up this story for you. All right, so where did I leave off? Oh yeah, cleaning the apartment. So the friend's house I was staying at, of course I wasn't staying at somebody's house that was like sober or anything. And as single, kind of young 20-something-year-old fellas, we did a pretty good heavy night of partying the night before. I was supposed to meet my ex-wife at the apartment to do my share of the cleaning and also to take my son so that I could have him for the rest of the weekend and she could have free time. So I show up to the apartment and I'm about an hour late and hung over as all. I imagine that I reeked. I don't remember her saying anything about me smelling, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't pleasant. And I get there and she's kind of not happy with me being late, and so I take this defensive stance, and then she mentions like, oh, well, you're still like drunk. And I was like, what? I'm not drunk. And so she says, well, we're leaving. And I was like, well, why don't you give me my son? Why don't you give me Ethan? And she's like, no. And she started walking away, and I guess I was pretty furious. I say I guess because I don't really remember. I don't remember being angry. I just remember being like, you can't just take him from me. And so I reached out and I grabbed a hold of her arm as she was walking away from me, and I was like, just give me my son and I'll take him with me. And she kind of ripped her arm out of my hand and, was like, get your hands off of me. You're trying to hurt my son. And I might be a little dramatic, but that's the way it sounded to me. And that's kind of just the way I remember it still. She leaves. I go inside the house because obviously she's not coming back. She was pissed. I wasn't going to cause a scene. And I go in and I start cleaning. And then I get a call from my grandmother, who's like 88 years old. And there's no furniture. And I remember just sitting in the house. I was sitting on the floor talking with her. And it must have been a half hour, maybe 40 minutes had gone by. And there was a knock at the door. So I went and I opened the door. And to my surprise, there were 2 uniformed police officers, and they said, are you Mr. Rafferty? Yeah. And they said, you're gonna have to come with us, sir. And so I was like, oh, they didn't even say come with us. They're like, we're gonna have to take you downtown. And I was really confused, and I was on the phone with my grandma, and I said, okay. And so I'm like, Grandma, I gotta go, because they're like pulling me out of my house. They were like forcefully pulling me out of my house. And I go outside, and my ex-wife is there, and she identifies me, says, yes, that's him. And they said, Mr. Rafferty, we're gonna have to put you in handcuffs now, and you're under arrest for domestic dispute. And that's how that went. They, in front of the whole neighborhood, like people looking, I could see people gathering around because there's cop cars. You know how people do, gawking, rubbernecking. What's going on over there? What's going on? So man, I was so just humiliated, and sure enough, they took me downtown, booked me, put me in a jail cell. I remember I was wearing like this kind of light pink colored rock climbing shirt and a pair of like gym shorts. So I feel like I was a hot piece of meat in the jail cell. And I spent 24 hours in that place until one of my friends bailed me out. I don't really even know how they found out I was in there. I
don't remember being able to call anybody. Maybe my ex-wife told somebody I was in there. They kind of... But anyway, those people bailed me out, and they almost didn't let me out because unless my ex-wife would have said that she wasn't going to press charges. But at that time, it didn't matter. In Southern California, there are just so many domestic violence, what do you call that? Just so many calls, so many like instances of domestic violence that it was almost like you just were gonna have to pay the fine and do your time. So luckily I got bailed out, and then eventually it just got dropped because once they did contact her, she just kind of let it go, which I was really thankful for. But it was, again, at that time, it was like I was just mad at her. I was so mad, and it wasn't just I was mad at her for calling the cops on me, but then I was like, then I had to pay money, so I was mad at her about that, and I was mad at her for not getting my way, and I never once took that into consideration. They're like, you know what, maybe if you just would have been an upstanding guy, showed up not drunk to pick up your child, like she had every right to not let that boy come home with me. Who knows? Like, I could have, who knows what would have happened? Anything. So that's the story, guys. Drunken Sailor Sea Story. What was that? Episode 9. Man, these are flying by. So hope you guys get something out of that. Doesn't pay to get drunk and go try to have some communication with people you're getting a divorce from. Anyway, that was that. Lesson learned. Didn't do that again. But hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.